Hey friends, in this video, we're going to look at the, as kind of an update video, we're going to look at the fully released specs, price point, everything for the Panasonic AU-EVA1, which announced earlier this year, right around the time the C200 was announced. This camera is going to be really exciting for a lot of people, and I'm really interested in kind of diving into everything that we know now to kind of eke everything that we can, every little bit of expectation out of that we can. So let's get into it. Starting off, the EVA1 is going to come in at $7,345, which, in case you know you're not as up on the numbers as I like to be, which, in case you're not up on the numbers, is between the two options for the C200. So the C200A, if you will, with the EVF, with the touch viewfinder as well, that comes, and handle, all that comes in at $7,500. The EVA1, $7,345, and the C200B without any peripherals, no EVF, no touch view, no touch screen, that's going to end up being right around $6,000. So by doing this, by pricing the EVA1 where it is with an EF mount, Panasonic is really going to devastate C200 sales, because most people that are buying a C200 are probably going to be getting it with the EVF and with the touchscreen, because you need it to be able to do that kind of work. And so if you don't have that touchscreen for your DPAF, you're kind of going to be a little bit up a creek unless you're going to use the manual focus DPAF bits, which are really cool. Don't want to necessarily get into that here, but the point being that this price point with this feature set is going to really do a number on Canon if they can get a lot of things right, and it looks like they have. So top line specs: 422 10-bit internal to SD cards. Now these are V60 SD cards, so they will be a premium, but they are SD cards nevertheless. 4K 60p at 10-bit, that's a big deal. The C200 does 12-bit at 4K 30, 10-bit at 4K 60, but then you really can only access those when you're recording RAW with C-Log to the CFast card. Otherwise, if you're going to record to an SD card, that's 8-bit 420. And so this is a huge distinguishing factor for the EVA1 that I think should not be minimized, because this, in terms of image quality, in terms of color depth, is a far superior camera. The EVA1 is going to have dual native ISO. It's going to have V-Log and V-Gamut, so you're going to get really good rich tonality with very broad dynamic range, 14 or 15 stops of dynamic range out of that. It's going to be a great camera to have on any production. It's going to have 14 stops of dynamic range. With built-in ND filters at 2, 4, and 6 stops, that's going to make this camera very much on par with cameras like the FS series from Sony, with even C200, C300 in terms of usability and not having to go out and buy matte boxes and all this. If you're a smaller time production, this is going to be a really big boost in terms of ergonomics and usability every day. So while the EVA1 can only record 4K 60, internally, it will be able to, down the line, output 5.7K RAW to an external monitor, external recorder. Atomos is working on that. That's a big deal. But I think the really key point here is that, oversampling is a really big deal, right? Cameras that oversample their image get a much better image at the resolution that they're wanting to get. So cameras like I'm using now, the 6300, takes that 24 megapixels, and then it records a 6K file, or it oversamples from 6K to 4K without pixel binning any of that, and so it's recording every single line. That means that you're going to get much, much higher resolution in terms of the 4K out of a device like the 6300 than you will out of a device like the C200, which just has a 4K sensor. Now, on the other hand, there's 5.7K, which the EVA1 is at. The thing about 5.7K is that it's a direct scale up and down. So when you directly scale down to 4K from 5.7K, it's a 1-to-1, right? So that's a really big deal, because that means that you don't have to crop anything out, you don't lose any information, you don't lose any part of the image in that scaling process. Whereas going from 6K to 4K, that 0.3K really does make a difference, and you do lose part of that image, part of the readout rather. So that's a really key component as well. Those V60 cards that I was talking about earlier, those are going to be required for all frame rates and all resolutions. So that is going to be an investment. However, you're still recording to an SD card. That's a big deal. You're still recording every possibility on this camera to an SD card, including 10-bit 422 internal with Vlog. Straight up. That's great. That's huge. So the EVA1 is going to have a 3.5-inch touchscreen monitor. I think that's going to be a huge thing for ergonomics on a regular basis. It's going to have, it's going to have a lot of really great features, XLRs. It's going to have good ergonomics. It looks like it's a very intentionally well thought out camera. I can't imagine the C200 standing up to this in terms of specs at all. I think that the EVA1 really blows the C200 out of the water. However, I think the C200 is going to be a camera that still gets a lot of sales because it's Canon, because of DPAF. A lot of professionals are starting to trust that. There's going to always be a group that won't, but there are more and more that are trusting it, especially DPAF with manual focus. That's a really cool feature. I think, though, that the EF mount that they've put on this really could be a game changer for Panasonic in the sales they'll see on this. I think they're going to see a lot more sales than it would have done if they'd done PL mount, if they'd done interchangeable mount, if they'd done whatever. So I think this is a really exciting camera. I think C200 sales probably will be better because it's just got that Canon logo on it. But I think if any camera could do it, it's going to be this one. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I'm really looking forward to seeing the next one.